This meeting is being recorded.
Hello to everyone. We are very happy to have this new meeting at Encounters with Artists. In this opportunity, we have two great artists, Simpson and Shona Wilson from Australia, both. So we are very excited to learn and to know about their experiences. We start with Christine Simpson.
Please turn off the microphones in order to do not disturb the Christine talk. Thank you very much. Well, Christine Simpson, following on from 2 decades of art making, exhibiting, educating, collaborating, curating, and completing postgraduate studies at Sydney SCA, majoring in sculpture, performance, and installation. I have arrived at a practice that has become a facilitation of energies, processes, via wave of light, color, sound, and unseen energy, and the subsequent direction of these elements, my artwork manifests as dynamic permissions to impress the sensory and phenomenological experiences of life existence. Dear Christine, the audience is yours.
Thank you very much, Andrea and Gabrielle. It's so very lovely to see you both. And it was such a wonderful time that I had last year at your residency with Pro Art Circle. And I suppose I'll begin with how it kind of panned out when I first arrived. So I was under instruction by Andrea and Gabrielle to do nothing.
Okay.
I was not to make art. I was not to get excited or get myself stressed in any way. I was to just go into the experience of going to the caves and being with the primitive landscape within the caves and the artwork that was there and the surrounding landscapes, and just let it kind of permeate and percolate. So I said, okay, I will do it. And we did. And it was very wise to put the brakes on and not get involved in kind of the art making process until I'd had that journey back in time, really, because it was a very, very powerful experience. The artwork in those caves, the caves themselves, are, well, astonishing, really, in many, many ways. And every cave has a very different personality, and the artworks and their placement within the caves also had very different readings and meanings, depending on, different ways of viewing the positioning and entryway into the cave. So some of them were on full show for peoples of ancient times that were coming through, probably passing mobs that were walking through the landscape, visiting other mobs in the area. And they believed that those drawings that were on public view in those larger kind of amphitheaters were almost like the first TV or movie, if you like. You could sit and look at them, and obviously things were being played out for them as well, and the hunt and gathering and what have you. And so that was for everyone to see. Then we'd go into other caves, and I think the one that was probably the most mysterious and interesting for me was the Cave of Coins. And so you had to go in through quite a narrow passage and back and back and back into the cave, and then the artworks reveal themselves. And the guide believes strongly that the reason for that is because it was secret, sacred probably in many ways, and not to be viewed by anyone that was passing through, but for specific ceremony. At that stage, there was one of the images was a beautiful stallion running across the wall. And then the guide laid all the lights down low, and he just made the light flicker with his hand, like it would have been when they were painting those images onto the cave wall. And I kid you not, that horse was galloping across the surface of that cave. It was a very moving and powerful experience. And so really those drawings and paintings are bas-reliefs. You know, they're using the surface of the cave to create three-dimensional kind of variations in form, shadow play, tone work. And this was really intriguing to me. I hadn't kind of really thought of it that way until I'd had that experience. Needless to say, after the 2 days of seeing, I think we went to 5 caves and had some beautiful walks around the area as well, that then I was given the green light. So if I was ready to, I could begin my art making process. And that started really, I often, when I'm in a place of interest for my art making, often I'll link that with poetry writing. And I find that that really strengthens the experience of being in the landscape and being in that sort of circumstance and that particular phenomena. And I'd like to read you the first poem that came to me after that initial encounter in the cave, and it's entitled Home. Home. Look inside yourself to see the flickering colours that dance and caress your soul, harmonious beyond time, carrying you, boneless, emptied, home. And so that's really where the art making began. I knew the only thing that I'd kind of decided upon before I'd got to Cantabria was that I was traveling really light. I wasn't bringing materials with me, and that everything that I was going to make, whatever that may be, I would make by hand. So, and that struck home that I'd made a really good intuitive choice after the cave viewings, because the connection that I felt to the primitive peoples and their way of living was palpable and very, very moving. I actually felt I probably had a lot more in connection with them from their time than I do largely in the world we live in today. I had a great yearning to sit at their fire and to hear their stories and to watch their dance. And I don't know also if that's because of the circumstance in our own country where our First Nations or Aboriginal people have this incredibly potent connection to country, and it is part of our secular and political landscape. So I think that possibly, you know, my awareness of that had been heightened through my own home's experience. But needless to say, I really wanted to be with those people and be a part of their mob. And so the hunch to make by hand, I just wanted everything to happen in the primitive. And so then I started to walk around the various areas around the residency, and what was around me everywhere were actually all these very beautiful weeds. And I kept looking at them and I thought, well, there they are, you know, these roadside beauties that have been discarded by us, you know, as worthless things that are really of no value. And I'm looking and I'm looking and I'm thinking about that, and kind of surrounded by the nature that's there and these fantastical cliffs, limestone cliffs, and very kind of ancient beachscapes and cliffscapes. So I had that kind of romantic, powerful thing going on in the landscape, and then these discarded beauties kind of flanking my path everywhere I was walking. And so I got back to the studio and I wrote another poem, and it's called Harvest. Gather me for your harvest. Let the bees see me gone to seed, and calm me with soft pollen drones into a daydream of flowered bliss, a kiss before the bite of winter. Take this worthy veil for snails to trail their glisten upon, and bring their feeled song slowly forward, trance-like, ready for what may come. And I started making, and I gathered up all these weeds, and I decided to use repetition, and I wanted to make a weaving. So I decided to make a shield with these weeds, and it was a shield, a paradoxical shield that could not protect me. A bit like our skin, you know, we have this fabulous organ, our skin, that covers our bodies and does all this wonderful work for us. But basically, at the end of the day, it's a very vulnerable affair and we are very fragile. And we put up all these shields in our lives and we have all these masks and various other things, other accoutrements to protect us from the world and world's experiences. And of course, you can't protect yourself, really. You have to face the music. So regardless, I made the shields and also I made a headpiece to go with the shield as a further protection. And then really what I wanted to do with that was to throw it away, to get rid of it. And I did that in a series of stills that Andrea very kindly took for me as a short performance piece. And maybe Andrea, maybe we have a look at, is there one there we can see that one of the
Yes,
shots
perfect.
of that?
Yes.
Yes.
I want to show.
Sonido.
So there's the shield. That's the final kind of object or two objects that were made. As you can see, they're very fragile and quite transparent, and yet they serve a purpose. So I used all this cross weaving and binding, and I used the ends of the weeds sort of as texture and decoration for the shield, making and also for the headpiece. Interestingly, with the weeds also too, I'm a woman of a certain age, and often in our society, in modern society, we're kind of largely invisible, I suppose, in many ways, as an aging a woman that's in her middle life or later middle life. And I think that was also a strong resonance for me with the weeds. So, kind of this discarded presence in the world by a very busy global kind of energy that's just relentlessly carrying on. There was also a personal component to this, which I won't get into, but that was also very cathartic for me to have made that and then to have let it go over the cliff. And of course, I'm in my skin, my other shield, and I thought that was appropriate to be like that. Thank you, Andrea.
You're welcome. Do I continue with the other?
And after that, I took myself off to the beach, and down there at Tagle Beach, and on many of the beaches on that coastline, because I sort of did a long walk after the residency as well, there is a lot of wood. There's a lot of driftwood and many kind of interesting shapes and forms that are down littered on the beachfront. And so I had another agenda with the weeds that's coming up as well. But I also took myself off to the beach and I made an ephemeral work down at the beach, which I entitled The Waves. But we'll go to the offerings first. So the weeds, I gathered more of those. And then I was taken to a eucalyptus forest. And I found the appropriate eucalypt, a very handsome young tree. And I deposited these weeds. I set them up as an installation around the trunk. And I'd also made an offering, another woven kind of box that I gave back to nature at that time with the installation work for that. And another poem that went with that work was called Offerings. The weeds called, their flower heads heavy with drunken flies, lies, and alibis as to time passing. The mirror fastening onto unseen crevices and gravity-fed hollows that wallow with the inedible. In the dying day, among the sway of eucalypts, we hunker down to embrace the ground around the handsome trunk. Rumours of overdressing, compressing, boundaries drawn through blackberry thorn with offerings of discarded beauty. And maybe the images, yes, so there's some there in the little eucalyptus forest, which are all over the Cantabrian coastline. You know, they've brought all these eucalypts over from our country, which was rather kind of strange to sort of get these visions of home around various corners as you were wandering through the landscape. And it was quite heartwarming in many ways as well. So there's some of the beautiful weed flower heads from that. And it was also an offering back to those primitive people to say thank you for showing us the beauty of your country when it was there, and the importance of the symbology of the animals and the hunt, and how you had survived such extreme circumstances. So it was a thanking, really, and appreciation for all of that experience with the caves. It was a very quiet work. And there is again sort of the interwoven stems of the weeds, and using the leaf, the seed heads as texture. And here we are now at Tagle Beach, where I made this first ephemeral artwork down on the beach. And I came back and told Andrea and Gabrielle that I had done so. And Andrea said, the nomadic, you're making nomadic sculptures now. And I said, oh, yes, I am. That's so true. So again, it was this beautiful connection to the primitive. And then, of course, I went on a long walk and continued to make quite a few nomadic sculptures in the landscape. And in fact, I've just come back from Lord Howe Island, which is this very remote island in the Pacific off the Australian coastline, and made some more nomadic sculptures over there using beach ephemera. What I really like about this process is the immediacy. So there's no intellectualizing. You're basically gathering what's there, what's been given to you in the landscape, and then you're actually watching to see how it's going to come together and present. You really don't know how that will be. And that, of course, is art making. I think at its best, where it's really coming from the subconscious and then it reveals itself to you, which is very powerful. And this one that I made ended up becoming almost 3 dancing figures holding each other in a circle. So again, the tribal, the kind of primitive thing was at play. And also I folk dance. So I don't know if that had any kind of sway on, those sort of communal dances that you do, because they're often in a circle and you're often holding hands and sharing that moment. But these were, very, very loose, free works that responded clearly to the landscape and to the light and the structures that were within the landscape. And the poem from this particular making, The Waves. The waves of love danced, singing sparkles, wash-tossing sand, releasing wood to snag the day-bright shore. Gifts from the wake, regifted, reimagined, interlocking drifted messages through limestone time to settle in the cove. A bird's bright eye holds witness, fibered Sanskrit, fleeting, final, before returning to the fold. And these fabulous, fabulous limestone cliffs that just were so evocative and powerful and primitive, and made a beautiful backdrop for this work. And there they are. They sort of, you can see there, they almost feel like 3 figures in some sort of dance, some sort of rhythmical movement. Again, there they are again. So it was quite pleasurable for me to meet them after making, I had no idea that they were there within the work. And so that was a very special experience. The rule that I had, of course, for this, that was the beginning of the work. The rule that I had for any of the ephemeral works is that I can't have any interference from man-made sort of materials. So no wire, no nails, no structures that can hold it. It has to hold and interlock itself. So a lot of tension was involved, and interlocking through space, the power of negative space as well as the positive was at play, and then giving it back to nature. So it was up to it when it was ready to let go. I have to say, the following day after I made that, there was a massive storm, huge. And I went back down late in the afternoon and it was still standing, which I thought was pretty cool. So that interlocking system that I'd used with the wood itself had kind of held itself in good stead. So that was interesting, and no doubt it just sort of disintegrated and went back to nature over time, as we all do. Yes, so then let me see what happened then. I wrote a short sort of prose piece about boundaries, which was also a byproduct of making the installation work offerings in the eucalyptus forest, because with those weed heads surrounding and sort of spiraling and circling around the base of the trunk, it created a boundary, which was, the line is such a powerful thing, and it created this force field around the tree that was almost like a no-go zone. And I suppose really, apart from the other things that were happening to make that work, that was the gift that I was given at the end of making that work and standing back. It was the boundary line and, the phenomena and power of the line. And so I responded with that, with boundaries, open or closed, visible or invisible, physical or mental, emotional or rational. The demarcation falls into line with what's acceptable to you. And I think the other thing that came to me as I was making the ephemeral work and then continuing my journey after the residency and making more of these things into, you know, in the landscape. And I wasn't interested in having an audience at the time of making. In fact, I'm really quite very private when I'm making my artwork. In fact, I would prefer to not have an audience at all. But I chose to be, you know, out there doing that sort of work. But what it came to me as I was going along on this journey was, well, the world is your audience. You know, the world is your audience. And so wherever you go and wherever you want to make work, the world is your audience. You know, you don't necessarily need to have a setup or, you know, I'm not involved with a gallery. And I think there's a great freedom in that. You know, you can just be and do what you feel is correct and good at the time, wherever you may be. So I thought that was a great gift also to be given, and that's, you know, linked to the residency for sure. So I will continue to make my nomadic works. And I have to say, I do have an existential problem after 30 years sculpting with, does the world need more stuff? You know, does it need more things in it? And that is a big problem to have as a philosophical question when you make things. So kind of the ephemeral work is working for me really well in that way as well, because it's not something that has to remain permanent or be in the world after a certain, until it's ready to go. And I think there's power in that, you know, for my practice and also for the world itself. So thank you for listening, and I hope I haven't gone over time. I was worried. I thought 20 minutes is a very long time to talk.
Yeah,
You see?
we were right.
Yeah. Many thanks, Christine.
Christine, many thanks for everything, for being here today, and for all the wonderful moments lived with you here in the residence. Well,
thank you. And these are very beautiful. Probably the people that are here today know how good these people are as human beings and wonderful hosts, and very, very motivating, but knowing when to sort of step in and kind of have a bit of a talk about what's going on and then to leave you alone. You know, they're very intuitive, and I'm very thankful that that was the case. So thank you.
Many thanks.
Thanks to you. Well, we'll continue with Shona Wilson. Shona Wilson is an Australian sculptor who has engaged intimately with nature, natural found materials, and the environment throughout her 30-year career. Created, assembled a sculptor for both a gallery exhibition and ephemeral land art outdoors in nature. She is represented by galleries in Sydney and Melbourne and has work held in private and public collections internationally and nationally. She has won awards, and her work has been presented in numerous publications and books. Shona's work is included in the NSW School Curriculum Art Workbook and create NSW Public and Art Toolkit. Her ephemeral land art practice has branched into workshop, educational services, and international residencies. Jonas' art practice invites opportunities to bridge art between nature and people, which activates ecological and psychological and spiritual regeneration. She believes art has a significant and vital role in revealing and restoring our deep connection with nature, art which responds to the need of the time. Dear Shona, the audience is yours.
Wow, thank you.
Oh,
I think I might be better off to. So I came to the residency. I was lucky to have a fellowship, which I was very grateful for. So it was a slightly different program to what Christine experienced. And after seeing the caves, there were three of us in the residency. An Italian girl from France and a Caribbean girl from New York.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And then, so after we visited the caves, we then had a designated area to work with, which was included a river and a forest. So it was a little bit different from the area around the residency itself, where Tagle Beach and the cliffs are. It wasn't coastal; it was inland, and that river. My experience in the caves was two things largely: the water that had created the caves, that element and time, and also humanity. And I've been working closely with nature in my ephemeral practice and, well, in my studio practice, as you mentioned, for a long time. But what struck me the most when I went to Spain, firstly, even flying over the Middle East and landing in Europe, was the humanity, which in Australia, the landscape is bigger than the amount of people here. So it kind of overrides. But in Europe, the humans have been there for so long, and the landscape is shaped so much by humanity there. And so it was actually ironically, the paradox of I was attracted to the human experience, or the massive, the human river that had been through that place, which seemed kind of almost infinite in a way. And in the caves, as Christine was saying, the drawings and the way that they used the shape of the rock to sort of make the animals three-dimensional, but it was actually the dots, just the simple ochre dots, and the single dot that marked a human putting their finger there, marking their presence, which also I think related back to Aboriginal dot painting. So I'd had a lot of experience with that imagery of the dot and what the dot meant. And it's like this singularity, but a multiplicity of that singularity. And the ochre as well, just that raw material of ochre, the red. And then in one of the caves, and I think it was in the museum that was related to which cave was
Altamira.
that one? Altamira, yeah. They talked about La Dama Roca, the Red Lady, whose bones they found under a massive stones, and they'd been covered in ochre. So she must have been, well, we think, an important person in the community. And she's called the Red Lady, and she's a relatively new discovery. And so the red of the ochre and the Red Lady, and she sort of became this phantom that grew to life during my experience. And again, Andrea and oh my gosh,
Gabriel.
Me,
Well,
me. Don't worry. Don't worry.
not only saying, don't come with ideas, but we want you to step outside your usual practice. We want to push you beyond the limits of your usual practice. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do a performance of some kind. And so I tried as best I could to both embody the Red Lady as a kind of linking presence through time, but also taking the Red Lady back to the red dot of just being just a flicker of life that appears and disappears in the river of time, like everything does. So it became a massive, huge story for me. And it was incredible in a lot of ways because I work intuitively as well. Having that experience of an ephemeral practice, as Christine was saying, you don't know what you're going to make. You arrive at things by the gifts that you're given from the world around you. And so after we had visited the caves, we got to the river, and I knew that I wanted to work in the river. And I thought, well, I just want to be a dot in the river. And I started looking at all the rocks and saw myself as a rock as well, as the river rises and falls, rocks appear and disappear. And so it was like a life appearing and disappearing. And I found red ochre right by the river, a huge deposit of it. So I started doing a lot of ephemeral works just with making sort of tracking shapes with my fingers around the rocks and then playing with the water. It was quite shallow in a lot of places and sort of bubbled over the rocks. And I had my hand in there at one point and noticed that the shadow of the bubbles going over my hand was like a trail of dots. So it kind of was like the bubbles were like the energy itself of the river, or of just energy, pure energy of life, was entering me in that way. And it kind of, so I had little videos of the shadows of the bubbles flowing over my hand and up my arm. And then I just became more and more sort of enamored and enchanted with the dot. And I didn't know how I would express myself as a dot in the river. And I didn't want to be naked. Thought, Christine, you were very brave to be naked. I didn't want to be it was a sort of a public place. People were walking up and down the river. So, I didn't want. So we went to the Chinese store where you can get everything. And I was looking for a one piece, a long leotard thing. And all they had was a lion's costume, but it was the right sort of russety red color and it fitted me perfectly. So we bought that and I cut off the fur and put that on, cut off the tail. And it was amazing that when the suit got wet, it actually took on the color of the ochre. And so then I put the ochre, did a performance, and Andrea videoed it all for me. I didn't plan the performance. I just prepared myself as a red being, a dot, or La Dama Roja, and covered all my skin that was exposed. And I took a ball of ochre in with me and started making my sort of marks as I moved out over the shallows. And then I just moved around very intuitively and curled myself up into a ball and held my breath and became a rock, and then grew out, became sort of a form again, and moved around, and just sort of playing with the river in the shallows and going in and out of formations, I suppose, like in and out of states of being. And it was a really embodied and amazing experience where it became timeless. Apparently it was about 20 minutes long, but it felt like no time to me, or forever. And I lost my identification for a few moments with myself. And that, I think, that's my goal in life, is to have that experience of, through art making, I find I can access that most easily through art and ephemeral works. So you become present in the flow of time, just to the moment, just to now. And I'm not sure if that sort of translates in the video or in the still images from the performance. But it didn't end there, because I had another couple of weeks in Spain after the residency. I went to Barcelona and up to Cadaqués, and the Red Lady was everywhere. She was just, I found her everywhere. In Cadaqués, there's a corten steel cutout of a woman, so it's red rusted steel. And her name, that's the thing, Lydia is her name. And that was the one important thing that I forgot, was when I was looking in the river at all the rocks, I saw a piece of graffiti, and the graffiti said Lydia. So Lydia became the name of the performance, or Lydia's Way, and Lydia became the name for the Red Lady. I wrote a poem about it, so I might read that now. Lydia appears in this instant, within the bubbling dance of creation, written in stone, flowing in water, drifting in space. She is a mark, a dot, a moment, a splash, a streaming line, a stone, a cave, a river, an eddy, a body, and all the space in between. She is finite and infinite. She has no beginning or end. She is the continuity of transforming entities. She comes from Asia Minor. She comes from La Dama Roja. She comes from me. She comes from you. She comes from everyone. She comes in everything. She becomes, becoming Lydia. So maybe we should go to some of the images now.
Yes, of course. Thanks.
I'll just read out another poem that I wrote. It's called This Bubbling Feeling. Oh yeah, there it is. In the infinite, you can maybe play that video and I'll read it out, because I have it here myself.
Okay. Do I
Yeah,
put,
we just play that, yeah. In this infinite flow of the river, I am held. Can you still hear me talking over that, or not really?
No,
no.
because we
Oh.
are sharing the audio of the video.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll just read out the poem and then we'll watch the video. This bubbling feeling, giving and receiving, in this infinite flow of the river, I am held, running fast and slow, together in the current of timeless time, finite and infinite. The rhythmic dance of creation is embedded in stone, flowing in water, drifting in space. The spaciousness inside the cave reveals a timeless stampede of life, never ending, its gushing rhythm overlaid and layered, all held in a vast infinity, every dot different and the same, a bubbling feeling.
Okay.
And so then I covered rocks with ochre and did a similar sort of flow of the water. I think there seems to be some delay in the video. So this one is where I'm playing, I'm sort of dancing into the suit, taking on my new skin, and that kind of related to the idea of the selkie, that mythological story from the Celts about seal skins. So this is kind of a bit like my seal skin. I'm not sure, did the last video, it was buffering, so it wasn't flowing. So if that happens again on this one, we'll just cut it short.
Okay.
Cut it. Yeah, maybe we should just look at the still images of that, if we've got some still images, because all the videos seem to be delaying.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, that maybe, yeah, let's just look at the still images, I think.
Yeah.
Is anyone else having problems seeing the video? So that's in the cave. The red dot's in the cave. It's me preparing for, well, it's part of the performance, is putting the ochre on. And then the next one. Keep going. Do we have any still shots of me dancing into that skin suit?
Yeah.
Yes.
There are 42
Yes.
still video images shown.
Okay. So this is the Lydia, and that's me just making dots with water, different trails, starting to include some ochre. And I found, see that stone at the bottom? If we go back, no, it's okay.
Ah, sí que puedes ir
Sí.
para atrás de eso.
Ah, sorry.
It's okay. Keep going.
Yes? Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, so this series, it was pretty amazing thing to, I was covered in ochre, and then I sort of danced and videoed myself kind of entering into that suit and dancing, sort of dancing with myself, dancing with my skin.
Mhm.
This is before I did the actual performance. So everything led up to, I think it was the last day that we had at the river was when I did the performance. And I like see the way the suit on my body looks a bit like the creases in the rock. So I didn't even see myself there for a moment. I was the
Yes.
rock.
Yes.
Where are Shona?
You are hiding here.
Where's Shona? Very good. And then, yeah, becoming a bit playful and just feeling into the quality of the water. And there I felt like an animal, you know, an animal that had gotten into the water and all the water just dripping off its hair. It was like a rebirthing in a way, or a birthing process. That's probably my favorite photo image. Yeah, I think that's it. That on the far right there is the graffiti of Lydia. And then that stone, there was a little stone that I found that looked exactly like the little oil, the stones that they put the oil in to make the fire. There was just so many little serendipities with what I found and connections back to the caves. And
Jonah, do you want I show anything else from here, or do I stop sharing?
I think that's enough.
Okay.
Yeah. Because, yeah, so the Red Lady also relates to, I practice and I'm interested in Vajrayana Buddhism, and a lot of the female deities in Buddhism, the passionate ones, the red in color. And last year I was in Bhutan and I did another performance. So the performance aspect has carried through, and that performance is called Motherlode and based on a Tibetan deity, but she was dressed in red again. So Lydia keeps on going.
That's good. That's good. Many thanks, Shona. Many thanks. It was amazing. Now we are open. Please open the microphones from the rest of the audience. and invite you to comments and to ask or share something to Christine and Shona.
Monique, yeah.
Monique.
Hi. Well, first of all, thank you for sharing your art, both of you. It's amazing. I have I feel a lot of connection with things that each of you different artists says. So thank you first for that. I'm an Argentinian and I also live in Australia. I live in Brisbane. So I understand what you both talk about, the connection with the earth, because I learned that since I'm living here, the respect for the animals and the nature that otherwise I didn't feel it in other places. Like I was living in Holland and it was that massive human construction that Shona we were talking about, full of people. Here it's completely different. I have two things to say. One, I also went, Shona, to Bhutan last December, so I understand what you say. My question is, why do you think the red? Why red and not other color? Why you have the connection with the red? That's my question for you. And for Christine, I want to say, I almost cry when you show the shield that was trying to so fragile, that was trying to cover you, and you were naked. I get so emotional. I think that's a very powerful image and concept. So I felt the fragile, and I almost was crying. So I really get connected with that. So yes, that is me. So
Okay,
thank you.
Shona, please.
The red, it's sort of serendipity, but if I look into it and feel into it, the red is the blood, and the ochre is full of iron, and our blood is full of iron. So it's that really basic, substantial connection with our body and the earth body, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. I guessed. I thought about that, but I wanted to ask you. Thank you. Yeah. It's impeccable. Both of the artwork are really good. Thank you for sharing.
Christine, want to see something to
Say.
Monique?
Thank you.
Say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Okay.
that feedback. Thank you. That's really special to hear that. And yes, it was very vulnerable and very fragile. And yet I felt empowered through that process. So that was great. It was a great outcome, really. Yes, and to let it go was great as well.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you. I would like to say that you both were very brave, working in mid of nature, really going beyond everything. So many thanks for your vitality, for your work, and for your art. Really, thank you. Really, thank you.
Well, I'd just like to say thank you for providing the space, because you two, what you created and the way you organized the whole experience and the way that you, stood back and pushed us to explore that. And I think for me, that enabled me to go somewhere that I would not normally have gone. So very grateful to you too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Many thanks. Many thanks.
Yeah.
Well,
someone else to say something?
say
to comment
something to
anything?
Shona or Christine. or both?
Okay.
No? What?
Oh, Bridget.
Ah,
Okay.
Bridget.
Yeah.
I
Please.
just want to say what an absolute joy it was watching both of your presentations. I think both of you produced incredibly powerful and poetic works in your residencies, and it was an absolute joy to watch. I think, Christine, it was beautiful watching the fragility of those shields that you made. And I was when you first started talking, I thought they were going to be solitary objects, but how they then evolved into a performative piece was really beautiful. And Shona, also with yours, I thought that was brilliant, the way that you worked your dance with the shadow, with the form that the skin, as you say, was laying on the rock. So both really, really enjoyable. Thank you very much. Really enjoyed those presentations. They're great. Congratulations.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Bridget.
Bridget. Thank you. Anne, do you want to say anything? Something?
Sorry, I was looking for unmute. I was stuck without my voice for a minute there. Yes, actually, I really love both of your works. I was really touched actually because I feel a strong connection to them in relation to work that I've done. And it was interesting to see that both of you used poetry and had this combination of the writing with your work, and yet each thing could be distinct in itself, and it wasn't like the poetry relied on the visual work or vice versa, and I found them both very, very tender, and really it reminded me how much how important it is to show that side of our human experience, that kind of tenderness and delicate approach. And it was also curious to see how both of you used your bodies in your work. I've also done that, and how it was empowering for you also. I felt it was empowering, the use of your body, like to take it on as a different sculpted form. And the colors, I was really struck. I felt a lot of relationship between the color relationships that were happening with Christine, with that kind of delicate tone of your skin and the shield that was so fragile and delicate, and with Shona, with this ochre, I guess it's like a red ochre, and seeing that in the water and the rocks. It was really, I can't really quite express how I feel, but uh, both artists, your works really, really touched me deeply. I have to reflect and think about it, but I thank you so much for sharing them. I'm very, I feel very privileged to have had the chance to hear you talk in your own voice about your work. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne.
Anne.
Many thanks. Many thanks. We have a message from Hannelore. Hanne, would you like to say your message to Shona and Christine?
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah, I am very emotional because I practice a performance. Sorry, but my English is not very good. I am an artist in residence right now. I am from Chile, and for me, it's for emotive and poetic your works. And I say thanks for share the not only the image, I think if the words, the voice, listen to your voice. I felt that. Thank you.
Many thanks, Hanne. Many thanks.
Many thanks, Hanne.
Well, I would like to ask Christine and Shona to close this meeting. If nobody, would you like to say anything else? No.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Only say thank you for both of you for everything, for
Yes.
today, and for all the wonderful moments lived here with both of you. It was really fantastic to work with you. We miss and we love you a lot.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can I say something?
Yes,
Of course,
okay.
yes.
Shona, I saw those stills when I was in the residency, like at the end of my residency, Andrea and Gabrielle showed me your work. And to look at it again tonight, it's just joy. You know, this incredible feeling of joy in that river. And really intensely beautiful imagery, and you just became the river and the rocks, and it was incredibly powerful. Yeah, congratulations on that. It was beautiful to see it again. Yes.
Thank you, Christine.
Yeah.
I look forward to meeting you maybe. You're on the northern beaches, so we must
We
get
will,
into
hopefully, yeah.
other possibility of your work. I'll just close with, so the residency was called The Instant of Creation.
Yeah.
So I'll just read something to do with instant.
Okay.
And it's for all of us. We are here now and eternally. We are here in an instant. We are here always. We are here in all ways. In this instant, we are timeless.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Shona. And Christine, please, you close the meeting.
Well, it's been wonderful talking with everyone, and thank you for such wonderful listening, active listening, which is a rare thing in this world as well, I have to say, I think. I look forward to what will come from the residency. It's resonating still, and I imagine it will continue to do so and inform my practice as I continue my journey. And, you know, the only constancy is change.
Yes.
And that's what we are. We are natural in the natural world. We are from the natural world, and that's our journey. So I look forward to the next changes that are coming. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Christine and Jonah, and all of you to be here. Really, many, many thanks. It was a pleasure again. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Gabriel. That was wonderful.
Okay, thank
so
you.
much.
Take care of you, please.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye, Monique.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.